Hey everyone, it's Eddie Winkler, and welcome back to our CRIM and Jazz model series. This is going to be part 3, building your models. A couple things you're going to need: your razor knife, possibly one of your cups or handles, whatever. It can be the top of it can be a pill bottle also. Empty pill bottles make good paint handles. So that's just going to be for test fitting. And you're going to need your crazy glue, whichever crazy glue you chose. So without any further hesitation, let's get into it. I'm going to take one of these. And again, I am not a professional, so I'm sure there's going to be comments or suggestions saying what I'm doing right, wrong, but this is just the way I do it. So we have this crazy glue. If you've never used crazy glue before, I would not suggest wearing gloves. Reason being, your gloves are going to start to stick to each other, and if you get it all over, it's not good. Then you're going to end up getting it on your model. This particular type of crazy glue I like to call throwaways, because you are not going to save this long. It can last you a while, but for the most part, it tends to dry into your nozzle. So it's probably 1, 2, 3 uses at most. That the top of this bottle is going to be closed as you screw this top in. As you screw the nozzle in, it is going to break that seal, and you don't want to squeeze too hard. So let's see if this is working. So if you can see the little bit of crazy glue on there. And again, this is the gel. This is going to give you more control. If you've never used crazy glue, if you can see, it's not running. If you get crazy glue that is thin, the minute you touch this, it's going to be running all over. It's going to be not as fast curing. And just a reminder that this is crazy glue from the dollar store, and if you get crazy glue from other places, it might be a little better, but it has the same chemical composition as regular crazy glue. It's all the same. You just might need to let it cure for a little longer. So before we start gluing anything, what you're going to want to do is take your model and do what's called a dry fit. Now, dry fit just means exactly what it sounds like. You're going to take, without any wet glue or anything on there, you're just going to fit the model up and make sure everything fits in place properly. So you're going to look at his arm and make sure that that seam in his arm fits there. So that's got a good seal. His mohawk, CRIM's mohawk here, if you look at the mohawk, it has certain, everything is like just picture you're playing Tetris with your model. So there's that Jasmine model. So I noticed on my Jasmine model, it's not a big issue, but so the head fits in there pretty good. However, my ponytail does not fit too well into the back. So if you notice, there's a little gap there. You see. So what I'm gonna do is trim that little square. Since it's getting crazy glued, I can probably get away with, on my personal model, I would probably just break that off. But I'm gonna show you. You're just gonna apologize, I'm trying to look at the camera, and so you're just gonna shave maybe a little bit off of each side with your razor knife. Be very careful, again, sharp. So, like I said, we're live, real time, I should say, and things are gonna happen, and I just clipped most of that off. So again, this is very brittle resin, so that's why you want to be very careful. You don't want to break things like CRIM's tongue or the hand. I don't want to break these arms. But I tried to clean up that back piece of the ponytail and basically just took it off, which is not going to be a problem because it is just a support piece basically, and it actually helps. It helps with my build. Yours might fit in there perfectly, but once again, I will show you how that's not going to affect anything. So that being dry fit, Now you can take it a step further if you want and take out a little bit of our blue tack, which I've already got some here, but I'll show you. This is just, it's basically taffy that you cannot eat. So you're gonna wanna knead it up. This being mainly art community, you probably know about kneaded erasers. This is basically the same thing. So the more you make it pliable, the more sticky it's gonna get. So we're gonna take a tiny piece of it and we will put it in place where the hair goes, and then we can stick that on. Now you don't want to put a lot of force because we're just dry fitting it, seeing how things look when they all come together. We will take another small piece and we will just fit his arm. You don't want to push hard, just want to see, and then don't hold it. Don't just let it go. Make sure it's secured. So now you can see that he's coming together pretty good. So that basically makes up CRIM. This is his mohawk, base, and his arm. So you can tell that fits pretty good. It's gonna look really good once it's painted. Then just to take this stuff off, you just take it out. If there's any remaining on his parts when you take it off, you just take a clump of it and you just stick it like you would a sticker price or anything that you want to get rid of the sticky part. And then that's gone. You can take the mohawk off. If you can see that is stuck on there, just take it off. And then you just make it pliable again, and it's good to go for many more uses. I'll do the same thing for Jazz here. So we'll just take a tiny bit right there. We'll stick her head on. That might be too much. I'm off camera, I apologize. See how that looks. And the ponytail, we will throw a little bit back there and stick the ponytail on. So you're just gonna make sure that everything lines up, and it's gonna look pretty good once it's built. Now the last thing, there's a peg on CRIM's shoulder and a peg on her underside of her thigh, and you're gonna wanna shift her inside, and then she sits in there pretty good. We could put blue tack on there if we want to see the whole model together, but she's pretty much in there. So now what we're gonna want to do when we build this, we're gonna want to build Jasmine separately from CRIM for the purposes of painting. Can we put it together completely and then paint it? Yes. But so as a beginner, it's going to be much harder to get inside these little cracks and crevices if Jasmine is on there. So it's going to be very helpful. It's going to be 3 parts. So we're going to build CRIM completely. We're going to leave the base by itself. And we're going to have Jasmine by herself. So that way when we go to paint, we can prime each one and then we can take it in steps. We can paint a little bit of the base. While that's drying, we can do a little bit on CRIM. While that's drying, we could do a little bit on Jasmine. So then you take it in assembly line fashion. So when you reach some parts on Jasmine, let her dry. You go back to the base, paint a little bit on the base, then you go to CRIM, whatever. When it's all said and done, we'll glue her back onto CRIM, and we'll glue it on the base, and you'll have a completed painted model. So let's get to building. We're going to start with CRIM. Again, the base is pretty much complete. You don't have to do anything to it, but set it aside. Take this crazy glue wherever I left it. Start with the mohawk because we can handle everything without messing up the mohawk. Now you're not going to want to put a lot. Less is more usually in the crazy glue use. So you're just gonna leave little dots. If you put too much, it will leak over. You just clean it with either cotton swab, Q-tip, little piece of napkin, whatever, but you're gonna wanna wipe it completely away so that when it dries, it doesn't dry and look like another part of the model. It won't look bad. You're just trying to avoid that. So we'll set that in there. If you could see, there's a little bit, but it's not really leaking out. So we will let that dry. And that's a really good fit. The model looks great. So now we're gonna do the arm. It doesn't matter which side you put the glue on. You can put the glue on here and then put the arm on. You can put the glue on the arm. And in some cases in model building, you will want to put it on a certain part, but for this particular model, it doesn't matter. So again, we're gonna put a little bit, just enough. Another thing, I'm pushing, which you really don't want to do. I just did it because, again, I use these as throwaways. I have a bunch of them. But if you just drag it, you're not going to get a lot of that glue on the nozzle, which is going to save it a little longer. If you get glue on that nozzle, you just take it and wipe it on something right away. It will stick to the napkin, so you just do a quick wipe. Set that down. I'm going to get this arm on here. Without touching the mohawk, we're going to set this arm in there. We're going to make sure that we got a nice tight fit, as tight as possible. We're just going to hold it there. This is the patient part of the being patient part of the model building. Sometimes you're going to hold things for minutes at a time, but again, with this type of resin, glue tends to hold pretty good if you're just building it and setting things aside. Thing is, this, like I said, this is very brittle, and crazy glue inside there will also tend to be brittle when it dries. So anytime you hit it or drop it, it may crack off. It may crack in different places. This is kind of a thick and robust model, so I wouldn't imagine that's going to break anywhere other than a connection point, meaning where we just put that on. If that happens, you just scrape off the crazy glue, clean it up a bit again, and then glue it right back on. Once it's painted though, it will chip your paint job, and you're going to have to work that paint, which is a process. But is it possible? Yeah, but we're just going to make this look as good as we can with the tools we have. And if you need any expert advice or whatever, there are thousands of videos out there. During a live stream, I can mention some of them, some of the pros that I watch, but we'll get to that later. So CRIM is looking really good. We're not going to glue this again. Like I said, I'm going to put him aside. We're going to glue Jasmine now. So now here's one of those parts that we're going to decide where we want to put the glue. If I put the glue on her neck and I press down with the head, glue might run out. So what I'm going to do, since I know this peg from her neck goes inside here, I'm just going to put a little dab inside that hole on her head, and then I'm going to squeeze it down, and we're going to make sure that it sits pretty good. Again, I have a nice fit there. I only had a problem with the ponytail, but we're going to put that on there. If anything oozes out, like I said, we're just going to take the napkin or our finger and take it off. If you get it on your finger, it's going to dry, and you're going to have to either peel it off, which is not going to be fun. You have to wait, or you're going to have to wash your hands with a scouring pad, like a Brillo pad or Scotch Brite, to get it off with hot soap and water. You're going to be there for a while, so it's best to try not to get a bunch on your finger right now, especially if it's your first time. So let's throw a little glue in there. So you can see, and we are going to take her. And remember, don't try to force anything, because if your hand slips and you can break this arm off. And again, you can glue anything back together, but why do anything that's unnecessary? There are ways to fill those gaps and make things look better. They are a little more advanced steps, and it requires other materials that are not easily grabbed at normal stores. You'd have to go to hobby stores. But for what we're doing, this model's going to look great. So now we're going to go with the ponytail. So I'm going to dry fit this ponytail again. If you look at your model, there's a little groove in her ponytail, which sits on the collar of her shirt. or her scarf there. My personal one does not. If you look, there's a gap between her head and her hair. I'm just going to bump that up just a little because once I paint it, nobody's going to see behind there. It's not going to sit perfect, but once it's painted, it's going to look better. It's going to look like it's together and not separate from her head, which is kind of the point. We want her hair to look like it's all one. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a little dab of crazy glue right in back of her head where I want the ponytail to sit. And I'm going to put another one right on this collar. Now that might look like a lot, but it's going to be behind hair, so you're not going to see it that much. Now, when things are not where they're supposed to be on models, as far as it's not fitting properly or you're moving head to turn to the side, which you can do, but it just makes for a more fragile bond. So like for example, her hair it's supposed to be flat up against her jacket here, but it's not because I angled it out. So once it's dry and painted, if I press on this hair, it's kind of at the fulcrum point. It's going to break it away from the head. That's not what we want. But this is not a war figure or a tabletop model where we're going to be gaming with it. It's just going to be a statue. So once it's on the shelf, you're not playing with it or handling it, you're pretty good to go. So I'm going to leave this to dry. How long should you leave it dry? In reality, I can wait 20 minutes and it'll be dry. If you use the thin crazy glue, it's probably not going to be as dry as fast. So you might have to wait a little longer. But I'd say if you set it down for an hour, came back, you're fine. So there's our three parts. We can, again, now that it's together, we can dry fit it, see how it looks. We can use the blue tack if we want, but this sits pretty good without it. So there you have a completed CRIM and Jazz model, and we will set them aside. And in our next video, we will prime them. That will be part 4. We'll prime our model. And part 5, we will be base coating, painting. So I hope that was helpful. And again, I apologize if you have any questions, if I'm making things confusing. But again, we'll do a live stream sometime and we will answer any questions live, or you can just send your comments to the Zaid brothers and I'll get back to them. But for now, I think that's going to wrap up this video. As always, thanks for watching, and we will be back with part 4, priming your model. Thank you.
If you guys dug this video, go support us over at zaidcomics.com. You can buy all of our books, sign up for our newsletter, and get your very own CRIM statue resin kit yourself. The link is in the description below.